I am going to present the presentation, How to Study Effectively, Metacognition in Action. And as you've learned from the blog post, metacognition is really thinking about thinking. It's how to be an advanced learner and how to get an A in an academic setting. So I developed this with my university students because I found that A students had this mastered, but others tried to take shortcuts, do things quickly, and ultimately ended up spending a lot more time and working much harder, studying, and having worse outcome. The truth is, if you study effectively, if you study efficiently, it doesn't take that much time. You don't have to pull all-nighters, but you have to be present while the material is in front of you. And this is a step-by-step, easy, effective way of being a good learner. All right, so let's start with what's important right from the beginning is engaging with the material every time it's presented to you. So right from the beginning, usually the teacher or the professor assigns the reading prior to class. Do the reading and highlight the material before class. And while you're reading, engage with that material, think about the material, and be prepared to discuss it in class. Both what struck you as interesting about the discussion so that you can elaborate upon that material and already start a deeper level of processing, or make notes about what confused you so that you can ask for clarification during lecture. Also, go to class and participate. That seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be shocked at how many students either don't even show up for class and only rely on texts or notes, or they attend but they're checked out. They're checking their phones or surfing the web or thinking about something else. That hour or whatever amount of time you're engaged in that classroom is excellent study time. And it's a new format. It's different than when you're reading the text or when you're writing notes. You're actually listening to the teacher. You're listening to their illustrative examples. You're interacting with other students around you. Every single interaction with that material is a pathway to learning, which I'll go over in a little bit. So go to class and participate, and while you're there, take notes. Don't just print up the PowerPoints and read through them as the teacher reads through them. Take notes, make them meaningful. Write down the illustrations, connect them to other points from other PowerPoints, either before or after. Take notes. Turn in all assignments on time. Easy points. It always shocks me that when teachers or professors assign homework or things that don't even require that much mental effort, those are easy points. Make sure you turn those in. Testing is far harder. Those points are harder to get. Writing papers, those points are harder to get. Homework's a no-brainer. Do the easy stuff. Add up those points so you have a little bit of wiggle room if you make a mistake on a test. All right, now once you've got that information from the classroom, step one, when you're looking over the material or reading the text, create a productive work environment without distractions. Here's where our internet safety issues come into play. Multitasking is a myth. We know from psychological research very clearly that our brains can really only process one set of stimuli at a time, and that students are terrible at assessing when they're missing information. So they think that they're engaged in an effective learning process when they're multitasking, but in fact they're not. It erodes the memory process when you're shifting mental sets between different stimuli, between looking at your text, looking at your PowerPoints, listening to your professor, paying attention to your phone, surfing the net on the side, smiling at your neighbor. When you're going to engage with the material, make the work environment productive and distraction-free. Also, don't wait until the last minute. Deep processing works best by studying small chunks over several days. Procrastinating and doing it all at the same time, a lot of students think that makes the information fresh for retrieval time, but in fact it only allows a superficial memorization of the material. Deep processing over several days is far more effective. In fact, we even process in our sleep. So if you study a little bit every day, when your brain's going through its regenerative repair process at night, it's filing that information effectively so that you can retrieve it at test time. So studying small chunks over several days is far more effective than waiting and cramming at the last minute. Step 2, being organizationally successful. Set realistic goals in order to manage time effectively. Block off your schedule, triage for the most efficient way of managing your material, make lists, complete your tasks one at a time, realistic goals. Also, what we've learned is that even at college age, 20 minutes is the maximum amount of time a student can learn effectively without distraction. After 20 minutes, our attention starts to erode and we're not very efficient as learners. So no more than 20 minutes should a student be sitting focusing on material. 20 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. Get a glass of water, stretch, exercise, walk around. Probably not a great time to surf the net, probably not a great time to check your social media. Just a 5-minute refresher so your brain becomes alert again and it's ready to go back into the learning process. So 20 minutes of study, 5-minute break, repeat until the task is done. Step 3, get into a positive frame of mind in order to maintain motivation. If you're miserable, unhappy, have a bad attitude, sure enough, your brain is not going to be well equipped to encode information. If you're positive, aroused, motivated, attending, you're going to do far better. So happily committing to mastering a chunk of material at a time rather than looking at the whole thing. A lot of times students will go, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. It's a whole 20-page chapter. I can't do it. Well, then don't look at it that way. Read 5 pages, look it over, summarize what you've read, write down your questions, go take a break, and then read 5 more pages. Be amazed how quickly you can progress when you're only doing chunks instead of the whole. And of course, good self-care makes all the difference. Make sure you're rested, fed, hydrated, cozy. There's no reason to be in an uncomfortable place. Be cozy and comfortable, and take really good care of yourself as a learner. Perhaps the most important concepts in this entire presentation is building a learning pathway. We know that the more learning pathways that are paved to that material, the more pathways available to retrieve it at test time. So how do you form those pathways? How do you lay them down? With engagement. Engaging with the material, with principles of deep processing. So read and highlight themes to connect important concepts. Engage with that material. Don't just look word by word by word. Actually connect themes and concepts. Rewrite to organize your material meaningfully in your text and your notes. Rewrite it on a piece of paper. Use different colors. Use spacing. Draw arrows. Make visual cues. The more you can take in the information in a clean and efficient way, the better. Instead of looking through 20 pages of scribbled notebook notes, retype it on one piece of paper and carry it around with you and look at it each day prior to the test. View the information in multiple formats. Here we go with our internet. This is when technology is extremely useful and also makes learning more fun. Look up pics, look up illustrations, videos, cognitive maps, speeches. Look at things that supplement your learning material. It'll help build those pathways. Different modalities make it meaningful, especially emotionally meaningful to you. That much easier to understand the material. Also, explain and elaborate upon the material. Being a tutor to other people in your study group is a great way to do it. Connect it with other things that you're interested in or other things you've learned about. Makes those pathways that much more effective. Use abbreviations in your notes to get everything the teacher says. You have to get the information down in the first place accurately in order to learn it. Retype your notes with only essential information. Leave out illustrative examples, then highlight them. Professors tend to introduce a big topic, introduce your subtopic, and then provide evidence and illustrative examples to make sure your students understand the concept. Once that student understands the concept, those illustrative examples aren't necessary in the notes. Rewrite them, leave them out. That way, when you're studying, you're looking from concept to concept, you don't have to wade through a bunch of meaningless material that you don't actually need to memorize for test time. It's only to clarify points. Ask the teacher or the professor if you can record the lecture, especially if you're an auditory learner. listen to it over and over again. Some people find that more effective and they can attend to it better. Other people are more visual. A combination is usually best. Outline your chapters. Study in different non-distracting locations. Sometimes when you're at test time, you can remember, oh, I remember that I first read that when I was sitting at my desk. And oh yeah, when I was sitting under that tree outside, I recall reviewing that. You can access those pathways in all different ways, not just from the content of the material, but also the context of which you learn that material. So create pathways by studying in different non-distracting locations. Create study groups. Tutor other people, be tutored by other people, make it emotionally meaningful, make it fun, make it effective, make connections. That's what makes a learning environment fun. It's why I teach at the university, because it's an exciting, cool learning environment. You can do that for younger kids too. Okay, step 5, now we're talking about actually summarizing and rehearsing material for study time for the test. So once your study materials are formatted, practice retrieval and application in the same format in which you will be tested. So if it's a multiple choice test, what that means is you're going to learn facts that would be in a multiple choice format. Make up multiple choice practice questions with different vocabulary words or pieces of information. Use mnemonics, shortcuts like never eat shredded wheat for directions. Mnemonics help you memorize and make a meaningful structure to isolated facts. Visual mapping is also an excellent skill. You can Google Memory Palace and learn lots of different techniques about how to visualize material and move through that visual. It's a great way to memorize complex information. Open note. It amazes me how oftentimes people don't take the time to make their material effective. Tab and color code resource material for efficient search and grab. If you spend a half an hour looking for a particular chapter in a book, it's wasted time. Tab it. Be familiar with the organization of the material. That way you can turn right to it at test time, not waste valuable time. If it's an essay format, you're not just going to do mnemonics for an essay format. You're going to write practice essays, connect concepts, rehearse creating an essay outline, and filling in supportive evidence. So outline, elaborate, apply. It's a simple pathway, it's a simple concept, but students are often very resistant, especially the younger ones. So learning how to outline and organize your thoughts before you tackle the actual content is a very effective way to learn. So write practice essays if you're going to be tested in an essay format. And here's the important part of the metacognition, step 6. That's thinking about thinking. Evaluate your learning process and make necessary adjustments. If you're kind of checked out and your notes aren't making much sense to you, maybe you need to go back to the textbook, or maybe you need to go into your auditory recording of the lecture. Evaluating your process and adjusting is what makes a student out of a B student. Be flexible, be open-minded, and be creative. Finally, you've reached your goal. If you've made all those pathways to that material, you've taken good care of yourself, you have a good attitude, and you're able to quell your anxiety, then retrieving that information at test time is effective, and sure enough, you get great outcome and great performance. So there you go. Please join me in GetKidsInternetSafe.com. I'm Dr. Tracy Bennett. I'm the mom psychologist that will help you get your kids internet safe. Thanks for listening.